Thank you, Chairman Sullivan, very much. And thank you for mentioning Massachusetts, along with Alaska, as the seafood superpowers in the United States.
I'll note that next time.
My mother is, well, you did, you know.
Oh, I did.
You complimented Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
No doubt about it.
He went to
Do it all the
He went
time.
to Harvard, so he's, maybe he's subconsciously, doing it and then forgetting that he did it. But in your opening statement, Alaska and Massachusetts were mentioned as.
Should I get in the middle here to
a Yale man in the middle? Yeah. And the truth is that my mother's a Sullivan, you're a Sullivan. We were probably fishing in Ireland. Then we went to the two.
Probably.
Then we went to the two
Once the
states.
potatoes ran out.
And then we went to the two states that are the seafood superpowers. So our story, though, is one of declining seafood, and we have to basically try to do our best to figure out the issue, because the namesake of the iconic arm of Massachusetts is the cod that is found just off of the Cape's coast. Cape Cod and the rest of Massachusetts have a strong and a rich history of fishing and science. The Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act brings together these two subjects to support healthy fisheries and the fishermen and coastal communities that depend upon them. We have seen how fishermen, managers, and scientists have worked together to revive the Atlantic sea scallop fishery. Due to their success, New Bedford continues to be the leading U.S. fishing port based on dollar amount of fish and seafood landed. And I hope that this model of collaboration can extend to the other fisheries that are struggling in New England and support a vibrant seafood industry in Massachusetts in the 21st century and beyond. But given the immense challenges we face with the ever-growing effects of climate change and ocean acidification, today we must begin to acknowledge that we cannot solely plan on what happened in the past. Cod, which used to be so plentiful, is less so now. There is an ever-important need to focus on science and provide fisheries managers with the proper data to make well-informed management decisions. There are many challenges, though. Carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere are the highest in recorded history. We have reached over 400 parts per million. The last time carbon dioxide levels were this high, the world was a very different place. The Earth is warming, and our oceans are too. Not only are our oceans taking up some of the global warming, but carbon dioxide dissolving in our oceans is causing them to acidify. Study after study details the changes occurring in our climate, and the Gulf of Maine and New England are looking at some of the most adverse changes in the near future. Without action to reduce carbon pollution, we could face a New England without lobsters and a Cape without cod. But there is hope. Our fishermen have made it through many past challenges, and the hearing today is exploring ways that we can ensure a strong, vibrant fishing industry and healthy oceans for generations to come. So, Mr. Rausch, as you know, New England drowned fishermen have faced significant economic challenges in recent years, and Senator Ayotte raised the cost of at-sea monitoring earlier. Can NOAA prioritize certain fisheries for standard bycatch reporting methodology coverage at a higher rate?
Thank you, Senator. When in New England, we set the priority for standardized bycatch reporting methodology through the system laid out by the Council in their Fishery Management Plan Amendment. So they have articulated, we are required by statute to establish a standardized bycatch reporting methodology for the fisheries in New England. We do not believe it has to be the same for every fishery, but it does have to be standardized. It's a difficult.
Would you need changes to Magnuson-Stevens to enable the agency to prioritize certain fisheries for SBRM coverage?
I don't believe you would need it to. You might. I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that the answer, if you, given the court cases up there, if we wanted to prioritize at-sea monitoring, over to SBRM, we would need that. I don't know that we would need that to prioritize SBRM funding, but it would take, at this point, council action, because we do have a council amendment that dictates how we were going to do that.
And what criteria would NOAA use to identify priority fisheries?
I think we would look at, you would look at which fisheries have a history of bycatch, which fisheries is the bycatch that you're concerned about. There are some stocks that are healthy that you would be less concerned about bycatch, and some stocks that if you catch them, you'd be very concerned. So you would make an assessment about the different fisheries if you had a limited bycatch monitoring resources, which we do, and decide which ones you want to allocate those resources to. So those are the kinds of criteria that we would look at, but it would be largely with the councils that we would be doing that.
Okay, well, the New England fisheries are already feeling the effects of climate change. The Gulf of Maine sea surface temperature is rising faster than almost anywhere in the entire world. And these changes pose significant challenges to our fisheries. How does NOAA plan to allow for adaptation of management strategies to changes in ocean conditions due to climate change?
We just put out a report which echoes much of what you just said, and which indicates that certain stocks are perhaps more susceptible than others. I mean, we're very concerned that the economic driver behind New Bedford is the scallop fishery. They have calcium carbonate shells, and so they are potentially very vulnerable to climate change. So we've articulated which ones are perhaps the most vulnerable. I think it is imperative there. The Fisheries Service does not control climate change, but we can work with the fishermen to try to diversify portfolios, to try to make sure that they account for potential downturns if they're going to be in those fisheries.
Well, the cod and lobster, they need cold water. And,
Exactly.
And the lobster are voting with their claws as they move northward, and the cod are voting with their fins as they move northward. And so as they chase the colder water, as our water becomes warmer, it becomes a real issue economically for our region. So what additional or new data would NOAA require to help understand the different causes of changing fish populations?
We've invested a lot of money recently. I think last year we did invested about $3 million in Northeast climate science to try to get at that exact question. We, by virtue of the Fisheries Service placed within NOAA, we have a lot of access to our partners who do the environmental monitoring that can monitor temperature and other conditions. We're integrating all that now. I think it's hard to determine why a fish stock reacts the way it does. But we are investing significant amount of resources now, and we'll continue to do so in trying to improve our understanding about the way that these stocks may react to various climate scenarios.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I have an additional 2 minutes?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, thank you.
Take as many as you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Researchers at the University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth are working on a new video system that will count cod to improve the accuracy of the scientific assessment. This is just one example of technological innovation with implications for fisheries management. Can you speak to how technological innovations such as the one I mentioned can improve stock assessments, not just in New England, but around the country?
We think it's very important to work with third parties that develop these new systems like that one, to work them into the science enterprise. It's important for trust. It's also important to have a transparent system. So we need to be open to this kind of new information. We have a study fleet where we've employed the fishermen. They put cameras on the study fleet that look at where we tell them, go catch fish where you think the fish are. And then they will take the environmental conditions and reports, and we will incorporate that into our data set. All that's very important. So we invest a lot of money in our partners to do these. Even if we didn't fund the initial research, we try very hard to incorporate that data into our assessment of the stocks. Sometimes it takes a while to incorporate the data into the stocks. Sometimes it's very easy to do that, but we work very well with the state of Massachusetts and the various institutions there to do those kind of things.
Yeah, so it's important for fishermen and women and the fisheries management people to have the information so
Absolutely.
they can make timely decisions about the future. And finally, thank you, Mr. Chairman, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing may account for up to $23 billion per year lost to the global fishing industry. This directly affects the fishermen of Massachusetts. However, seafood fraud affects every state. Alaska and Massachusetts, of course, would be at the top of the list just because of how massive our fishing industries are. In order to protect American consumers and fishermen, there are specific provisions of the Magnuson-Stevens Act that can be enhanced to combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing.
There are. I mean, we are currently using the Magnuson-Stevens to, as you are maybe aware, to create a traceability system for both foreign imports. We have a wonderful traceability system in the United States. We can, as the government agency, it's not publicly available, but as the regulators working with our states, we basically know where the fish was caught, when it was caught, up to the point of the entry into the market. We're imposing, using the Magnuson Act, we're imposing similar requirements on foreign imports to level the playing field. Our fishermen should not be at a disadvantage to that. The Magnuson Act right now is not a particularly good tool for seafood fraud part. We have other tools. We are working with our enforcement agencies. That is mainly economic fraud that is going on, and we work with states and local governments to help prosecute that. We have some tools available. We are very concerned about that.
Do you need additional regulatory authority that the Magnuson Act can provide?
We have indicated that if we are fully going to achieve the vision of enforcing against illegal fish and fraud, that an additional enforcement authorities that would allow us to enforce beyond the point of entry. We can do a very good job enforcing at the docks. That's where the NOAA Fisheries enforcement agents go. Once it leaves the docks and enters in the chain of commerce domestically, we have very few tools to deal with that.
Does the IUU legislation that I mentioned in my opening statement, recently signed by the President, does that provide you enough authority?
It helps us with certain things. It does not provide that authority from the point of entry. Once it's into the United States, to guard against market fraud that might happen at a local distributor. That doesn't do that. It is a very powerful tool protecting us up to the borders and making sure that what's coming into the United States is good and sustainable. But the Fishery Service, at least, would have to rely on our state and federal partners for that enforcement beyond the chain. We don't have any authority right now to do that.
Great. And I've been working with Senator Wicker on this issue, trying to find a bipartisan way in which perhaps, Mr. Chairman, we could work together as we're going forward.
Great.
So I thank you. And can I ask a question? My mother's family's from County Kerry.
Yeah.
Where are your Sullivans from?
That's County Kerry as well. So
should
maybe we were fishing together.
Maybe we're cousins. Maybe destiny has brought us here to work together on.
Well, I look forward to working with Senator Markey, as we did last year, on an amendment that was signed into law just recently by the President with regard to helping move forward the fisheries in Alaska and Massachusetts and throughout the country. In all seriousness, I think we had a lot of work.
I agree with you. My mother always said the Sullivans are very intelligent people, so this is just further proof of that as we work together in the future on new amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.